Good evening, everybody, and welcome into the Lions Grid. We're getting an episode in here at 10:40 p.m., so getting it in before that 12 p.m. mark, getting it in on the Monday evening. I just want to welcome everybody in here as we get ready to talk a little bit of the Detroit Lions. Week 3 loss to the Minnesota Vikings, 24-28, the final score there. Uh, Close game between two NFC North rivals. Certainly a chance for the Lions there. Missed opportunity to take a lead in the NFC North, and we'll talk about that a little bit here as our key takeaways. But you know what? Let's just dive in. Let's get into this and talk about some things that I think really stood out here in that Week 3 game. So I think the first place to start, the player that deserves a little bit of recognition because he has certainly gotten a lot of heat since he was drafted by the Detroit Lions so early in the first round of the NFL draft 2 seasons ago. Mr. Jeffrey Okuda, I think if he can keep at the pace he's playing, certainly a possible candidate for um, uh, comeback player of the year. If you look at his last 2 seasons, both his rookie season and his sophomore season, cut short due to injuries. When he was on the field, he didn't look very good before then. But excuse me. So far here through 3 weeks, um, he has held here are the receivers he's faced in those 3 weeks. Week 1 against the Eagles, he was covering Devonta Smith. 0 catches for 0 yards is what he finished the game with. Again, week 2, he was covering Scary Terry as they were taking on the Commanders. Scary Terry had 2 catches for 22 yards. And this past week, in week 3 against the Vikings, taking on Justin Jefferson, holding him to 3 catches for 14 yards. So this is the second week in a row where it was sort of a letdown for Justin Jefferson after he exploded on the scene here in week 1, and I was saying that, he had the potential, to have maybe the best statistical season of any wide receiver that the NFL has seen. That seems to certainly have slowed down here, but, I think kudos to Jeff Okudah for being able to shut him down here, in this matchup. And it's not only been Justin Jefferson, like I said, Terry McLaurin, Devonta Smith. Those are 2 very good receivers as well. So, it's early in the season. We're only 3 games in, but I think a real strong case for Jeff Okudah, and someone who has been, I think, critical of his play since being drafted by the Lions. I have to take a moment and acknowledge him. I think, well done, Jeff Okudah. Something that wasn't necessarily expecting him to be playing as well as he has been, but congrats to him. So we'll have to watch that and see if he can continue that because certainly if he continues to perform at this level, really being a shutdown corner, I think he's a slam dunk for that comeback player of the year award. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Another trend that we're seeing with Lions through 3 weeks here is, they start with a lot of early energy, but in the second half of games, they sort of fade away. And even though they scored 24 points, 10 of those points in the third quarter, I think from a defensive perspective, offensively, they kept it rolling through the third, and then were shut out, of course, in the fourth. Defensively, that second half certainly was. Um, the Vikings were able to make adjustments and came out there and were able to find success. The Vikings scoring all or they had scored 14 in the second half and then scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter to get that victory against the Lions. Um, we've talked about it in past weeks, right? The thing that I'm looking for to know that the Lions have really turned the corner and have gone from being a team that's almost ready to compete to a team that should be someone who should be looked at as a serious contender in the NFC is their ability to play consistent games, maintain consistent performance throughout them. And here, 3 weeks into the season, we're still not seeing that. It's something that hopefully Dan Campbell and the team can address. But when you speak of consistency, you look at players like Amani Awarie, another cornerback for the team. You know, we talked about how Jeff Okudah was injured his first 2 seasons, and Amani Awarie was sort of a revelation. He was playing at a Pro Bowl level while Jeff Okudah was struggling. Now Jeff Okudah is back on the field playing like a shutdown corner, and Amani Awarie is really struggling. He struggled this past week against um, against the Vikings. Both he was in coverage against both Adam Thielen and Osborne there who scored the game-winning touchdown, and he was a standout last season, was doing really well again. It was nice to see he was a 4th round pick compared to the 1st round pick that Akuda was. Um, but it seems like this season he's really, really struggling. So, but if he can get back to that level of play and they can be consistent, um, it could be scary. But right now, at this point in the season, 3 games in, what we've seen is that Jeff Okudah has been able to really shut down one of the receivers, and then the rest of that secondary has sort of struggled to keep their second and third wide receivers contained. And they really seem to shine there in the second half, after have time to make some adjustments at halftime, re-strategize and come out there. So, I think it's been great what we've been seeing out of the Lions early, but here as we progress into week 4 and beyond, we really need to see them start to have more consistent games through all 4 quarters because they're really falling off here in the second half, and unfortunately, that's what hurt them this week. So, speaking about what hurt them this week, coaching decision and kicking woes. Um, Overall, we knew with Dan Campbell, sort of the knocks against him are that, right, he isn't an offensive specialist, he isn't a defensive specialist, doesn't have any real prior head coaching experience. So last year was a sort of year. He was supposed to be sort of his internship, learning on the job. But you're still seeing him struggle with some game management issues, some play calling things, and I think it was interesting that, throughout the game, you saw him being willing to go for it on 4th down, to get conversions and really, put the outcome of the game in the offense's hands. And then in the 4th quarter, with the game on the line, he decides to send out Seabird out there to try a career long field goal, and he misses it. I think if you look at the Lions kicking situation right now, I think it's pretty clear that we do not have a elite or top level kicker. He certainly can do what he needs to from 49 yards and up. He can be pretty consistent, but he's not one of those kickers. Not a Justin Tucker, not a Matt Prater, not a Robbie Gold that's going to come out there and consistently hit field goals of 50 plus yards. So an interesting choice, especially when they had seemingly known, and had chosen throughout the game to avoid putting themselves in that position to then, making the decision there with the game on the line to kick, the field goal there or attempt the field goal. A little bit surprising, and, hopefully, we really just need, uh I think Dan Campbell, in terms of his ability to motivate this team and things like that, we've seen a lot of good things out of him. But he's sort of on the clock now, right? He's timed in. He's getting paid. We need him to learn some of these game management things and get some of this game sense going because um, if he continues to struggle with decisions, and right, it's pretty easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, sitting here after the outcome of the game has been established and second guess his decisions. Um, but I think you just see him making some of the same mistakes over and over again, and not really learning from them. And that's something you'll hope that he'll clean up here in future weeks to help really give the Lions a chance to be competitive as they continue to progress through the season. Speaking of progressing through the season, the offense keeps on rolling. They did not score 30 points this week, and had they, I think that certainly would have helped them win the game. Obviously, the Vikings only scoring 28. This was their first road game, so they were able to put up 2 30-plus games at home. Were not able to do so in their first road game, but despite the loss, despite having injuries on that side of the ball, both on the offensive line, Swift getting hurt again, and him looking like he can miss some time with a shoulder injury, although I did see today that it won't require surgery, so, he may miss a couple weeks or be limited, but, thankfully, it shouldn't be something where he's out an extended period of time. Um, the offense just continues to click. Yeah, Amon Ross St. Brown has been a big part of that. He was hobbled a little bit in that game against the Vikings, so hopefully he can, get back and get healthy and be out there for them. in week 4 as they look to take on the Seattle Seahawks. But, I think it is impressive that we continue to see the offense, continue to roll on. Jamal Williams, uh, vulturing up some touchdowns, if you wanna call them that, or just finishing off drives, and them being able to find success, with sort of multiple players, I think has been really, really nice. So, hopefully, they'll continue that as they um, take on the Seahawks, and, they'll be hosting them at home next week. So, um, you know, maybe it'll be another 30-point game for the offense, but we'll have to see how that goes. And then really the final thoughts here about it is just really it was a missed opportunity for the Lions. A win against Minnesota, um, really would have put them in a really good place. Ideally, um, I guess in a perfect world, right, you sweep your NFC North rivals, because you play the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers twice each. So in a perfect world, you get 2 wins against them. I think if you're being realistic, you probably just wanna split that series. So they were very close to being able to get that win at Minnesota, so hopefully they'll be able to get the win at Detroit later on this season, and split the series. That's sort of the best case scenario now. But, a win here early on would have put them at 2 and 1, would have put them at 1 and 0 in the division, and would have had them sitting atop the NFC North. I believe they technically would have been tied with the Packers since they did get that win against Tampa Bay, and have already previously beat the Bears, but both of them would have been sitting 2 and 1, both 1 and 0 in the NFC North, and so they would have definitely at least had a share of that, NFC North crown. Um, and certainly 3 weeks into the, young season, it can, feel good to have that behind you. But, unfortunately, they will be playing behind now, 1 and 2. Definitely a lot of work ahead of them to do, and currently 0 and 1 in the division. And really, again, I think one of the most important things, uh, for making the playoffs, and really judging how successful your team is that record against your NFC North opponents. You play 6 of your, uh 16 games against them, so they are a large portion of your schedule, and I think really those teams are your sort of measuring stick, to see, what your what the ceiling is for your team. So, a game they could have won, a game they were certainly in the, driver's seat for the majority of the game, but were unable to close out. Again, we're gonna look for them to hopefully fix that consistency and play, complete games here moving forward. But, um overall, I think a tough loss for Lions fans because it's certainly a game where I think a lot of us thought they, uh, maybe not heading into that game, didn't think they were gonna win, but certainly, with them jumping out to that early lead, a game where we thought they could have potentially held on there and gotten the W, but, unfortunately, the Vikings were able to come back in the 4th quarter, Captain Kirk and crew, and get that, victory. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Lions Grid. We'll catch you during the next one. Will probably be another post game recap after the Seattle game. And again, that game is being hosted in Detroit as they bring in Geno Smith and that Seattle Seahawks team, which I think, hopefully, we should see a Lions victory after that. Improve to 2 and 2 on this young season, but it's hard to say for certain. But we'll see you next Monday. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Kevin Marhini, and this has been the Lions Grid. Oh boy.